Hi, David. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, Henry, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for
Excellent.
having me.
Yeah, just to start off with, I just want to know, can you tell me a bit about your background in the dental industry?
Yeah, Henry, I went straight from high school to university for a dental degree, and then when I graduated, I worked for um, 3 years in one practice, and then bought myself a practice in Parramatta, where I ran it for
Wow.
28 years, owned and ran it for
Yep.
28 years, and after I sold it, I stayed on that time. I sold it after 21 years, stayed on for 7 years for one owner and then the second owner. And then I left after that. I had some surgery for some arthritis on my shoulder, and then I got
Huh.
arthritis in my hand. So my career as a practicing dentist was restricted. So I retired myself clinically, but because I'd had a really good practice, dentists kept coming to me and asking me how did I do it? Could I give them advice about their practices? So it was logical for me to transition into practice management as an advisor and a coach for dentists who wanted to run better
Oh,
businesses.
excellent. Sounds like you've got such a rich history. So how many years in total was that in the dental industry?
Well, I graduated in 1982, so it's been
Wow.
42 years as a
Yep.
registered dentist, and 5 years before that as a student.
Wow.
So 47 years
Wow.
all up in
That's
dentistry.
awesome. You've got a lot of experience in that industry. So what got you into this kind of coaching or advising dentists, that kind of space?
Well, I had joined a mastermind group in 2002 that was organised by a dentist in Melbourne. He called me and said that he was trying to put together like a millionaires round
Yep.
table for dentists, and he was looking for successful dentists, but he didn't know anybody in Sydney. So I got a few people that I knew, because the thing with dentistry, when you go to meetings and seminars, the cream rises to the
Yep.
top. It's always the same people getting the education. It's always the same people doing the marketing. And so I was able to bring about 10 people to this meeting. There was about 25 dentists at this meeting in Melbourne, and we met every year. The facilitator for that meeting was a
Yep.
marketing guy who had worked back in the days with Bond Corp, and then become a speaker and a national speaker and a president of the national speakers. And he said to me, he said, David, when you finish being a dentist, you need to share your knowledge back to the profession. You can't take it with you. You've got to give back to the profession. And so that was my option after I sold my practice and stayed on for 5 years as an employee. Was my option was, well, at this point I'm done being a practicing dentist. I'd like to try being an
Yep.
educator, and so that's what I did. So for the last 12 years, I've been educating part time and now full time, and coaching dentists on how to have better
And
practices.
sounds like with your experience and you've with the different number of dentists that you've met, you sounds like you've met really successful dentists and some maybe not so successful dentists. What kind of common things do you say makes a dental practice really successful then?
Well, I think that it, the patients of a dental practice, always the public out there assume that every dentist knows what they're doing as a dentist, and that they're doing good dentistry, and that they are doing good sterilization, and that they know how to issue receipts, so they get their refunds if they need them from
Yep.
health funds. All right,
Hmm.
those are under. This is what they just understand that dentists know how to do. So if all dentists are doing that same thing, then the only way people will choose a dentist is how they get
Mm.
on with them,
Yep.
and how the service, the level of service, and whether they're treated politely, whether they're treated as a person, or whether they're taken for
Yep.
granted. And that's the trouble. Dentists aren't trained in communication skills, and they're certainly not trained
Yep.
in business skills. And so I've seen a lot of really good operators with their hands who have no idea how to run a business, and occasionally I've seen some bad dentistry being done by dentists who know how to run a business, who are good with the people skills. And so the the logical thing is that if you are assumed to be a good dentist and you are a good dentist, then learning the people skills is not hard, because last I read, Henry, was that no baby was ever born speaking.
Yep.
So learning how to speak and how to communicate it's a
Yep.
learnt skill. It's a learnt skill. It's My Fair Lady, Pygmalion, it's Wolf
Yep.
of Wall Street. Jordan Belfort trained garbage men to
Yes.
sell to millionaires. So anybody can be taught how to
Yep.
communicate properly. And so it's whether they want to or not, and whether they want to run a business. Um, when I tell people that I help dentists to run better businesses and make more money, they laugh at me because they think that dentists already make a lot of money. But dentists can make a lot of money, but they can waste a
Yep.
lot of money as well.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of room for buying things that don't, a lot of toys that don't work, both in dentistry and outside of
Yep.
dentistry as well. So at the end of their dental life, a lot of dentists get to retirement age and can't afford to
Yep.
retire. And that's the tragedy when you think of how much money they've earned along the way, that they should have been saving and growing a nest egg,
Yep.
and they haven't. And so when I hear of a dentist who's got a practice in the middle of Sydney and a house in the eastern suburbs, and he has to sell both and go and live down the south coast and still
Yeah.
be a dentist because he got no money, that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's what a
Yep.
waste of a
Yep.
life. Maybe he lived the good life in
Yep.
the eastern suburbs, but he should have put some money away. And so that's what I want to help dentists do, is to have successful practices so they can live where they want, send their children to school where they want, and retire when they want to and where they want to, and enjoy that retirement, and not have to retire and live in a small house in an area where they don't want to, and be counting their pennies as to whether they have to go down and buy the buffet down at the
And
surf
more
club.
importantly, if they do decide to work later on, work whenever they want to work as well. Yeah.
Well, that's true. Dentistry is one of those businesses. Like if
Yep.
you're a baker, you know, you can't say I'm
Yeah.
just baking
Exactly.
bread on Mondays. You'd have
Yep.
no business. But if you're a dentist, you can work 1 or 2
Exactly.
days a week, and you can even own
Yep.
your own business and still work 1 or 2 days a week, and have
Yep.
other people working in your business for you, and it's still you're there
Yep.
just 1 or 2 days a week, and there's enough profit to be an owner without actually being a technician in your business, as
Yeah.
Michael Gerber would
You
say.
mentioned before about communication as one of the factors with really successful dental or dental practices. Now, can you give me a bit more, insight tips of what you've seen in terms of communications?
Well, I think you've got to be likable. You've got to be able
Yeah.
to um,
Yeah.
relate to people. And so you've got to be able to relate to, as a dentist, you have a whole population comes to see you, from uh, teenagers, children, young adults, young families, um, uh, empty
Yeah.
nesters, retirees. You've got to be able to talk to them about what's
Yeah.
important to them. And so it can't be just your joke of the day
It's
suits
true.
everybody.
Yeah.
That's pretty boring. You've got to be able to talk to um, grandmothers about their
Yeah.
grandchildren. You've got to be able to talk to men
Yeah.
about the sport. You've got to be able to talk to men about business. You've got to be able to talk to um, young mothers about what they're going through in terms of
Yeah.
looking after kids and juggling households. And you've got to be able to talk to
Yeah.
teenagers as well. And so you need those skills. And it's a cliche, and I avoid cliches like the plague, but it's a cliche, and that is that you only get one chance to make a great
Yeah.
first impression. So you've got to be on your game all the time. So you can't be turning up late to work and you've got a waiting room full of people. You can't be coming in for a 9 o'clock appointment at 9:10. You've got to be there at 8:30, 20 to 9 before the first patient. First patient after lunch,
Yeah.
you've got to be there back from lunch, and they're ready. If they turn up at 2, and it's usually the directors, the D type people, they want to be seen first thing at 9. They don't want to come in, sit down, read a magazine, be called. They want to come in and just walk straight in. Yeah, we're ready for you. And so you've got to be ready for those people, but you've also got to run
Yeah.
to time. If you want people to respect your time, you've got to
Yeah.
respect their time, and that's really, really important. A lot of dentists don't
Mm.
do that. They don't run to time, um, and and that. they get a bad name for
Mm,
that. It's
absolutely.
and it's all about give and take. And if I see associate dentists come into practices, and all of a sudden they've got to wait, and there's a patient or one or two patients booked at the end of the day, and they go out to reception and say, "Can you move these people up?" Well, guess what you do? You create a habit for those people to then say, "Well, he moved my appointment. I'm going to move my appointment on
Yeah,
him
yeah, yeah,
another day," and so all of a sudden you
yeah,
lose that
yeah.
respect. And so you dentistry. Nobody wakes up on a Monday morning, Henry, and says, "I've got $500 left over after being down at Jupiter's casino. I think I'm going to ring up the dentist and see. I'm going to go shopping at the dentist and see what I can buy."
Yeah,
Nobody says that. Nobody ever says, I've got half an hour to kill. I'm going to ring the dentist in Blacktown and see what they charge for a clean."
yeah,
Nobody does that. Everybody rings a dentist. They've got a
yeah,
reason, but the receptionist's not trained on finding out what that reason is. Somebody rings up and they say, "How much do you charge for a clean?" It's not they're ringing up to find out what dentists charge for a clean. They need a clean. They just
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
what else to ask. So the questions you have to ask is, "Oh, so you need a clean? Is there an event on? Is there a reason why you're looking to get a clean now? How soon do you need a clean?" And they say, "Is it a wedding? Is it a date? Is it a
yep,
job interview? Has one of my grandchildren said, 'Nana, your breath
yeah,
smells?'"
yep.
All
So,
these things. Yeah, and even if their breath smells, what do they ask for? They
yep.
ask for a clean. They don't say, "I think I've got periodontal
Yep.
disease." No. So we've got to talk in their language, but we've got to get them to realize that the decision is, maybe I should come in and see these people if they've never
Yep.
been there before, and see what they're like, and meet them, and let's go
Good
from
point
there.
that you mentioned about, receptionists taking that phone call, understanding why they're coming in. We've got quite a few clients that work with us that do a lot of, say, high value services such as dental implants, veneers, and other clear liners or Invisalign. How should they first handle those inquiries in with the first phone call?
Well, those are what did you say?
Oh,
Dental implants, clear
veneers or
aligners,
yep,
in, veneers, and Invisalign. Right. Every one of those things is
yep,
a thing. All right. But what those people are calling about is they want a result. So they want veneers because they want to look like they've
yep,
got great teeth. They want clear aligners because they want to have straight teeth, but they don't want braces. They want implants because they don't want to have missing teeth with gaps, and they don't want to have teeth that
mm,
move up and down when they talk. Right. So it's like at the hardware store. Somebody walks into Bunnings and they say, "I need a drill. I need a drill." What do they
yep,
need the drill for? They need a drill to make a hole in their wall so they can put a picture hook to hang a photo of their mother, a photo of their wife, a photo of their children in a prominent part of their house, so that every time they walk past, they feel the love of that
yep,
relationship. It's not just a drill
yep,
bit and a hole. It's not just an implant. So we've got to get to the
yeah,
reason why they
yep,
want this, and if we can get that reason out of them, what do you know about implants? Well, I know that they help me. They'll stop my false teeth from flopping up and down when I talk. And they go, "Oh, is that an issue for you?" "Well, I can't chew my food properly." All right. So now we're not talking about the implant. We're talking about, how do you
yep,
feel when you chew your food? Well, some people say, "I can't even go out to dinner with my friends because I can't eat my food as fast as them." And so they're all waiting for me at the end, and I'm still cutting it up into small pieces because I
yep,
can't chew it. So that's an embarrassment. So then all of a sudden they stay home. They
yeah,
become hermits because of it. And similarly, my first ever full mouth veneer case, the woman never had, lovely, lovely lady. She never had
yep,
wedding photos. Her teeth were grey. They were grey. And so she said, "I just never had wedding photos." We didn't even have a wedding photographer. She said, "I just wasn't going to be photographed talking and smiling with grey teeth." And so when I gave her those, I
yep,
gave them to her as part of a course. I needed a patient. She said, "I'll do it, David, but I'm not paying you." I said, "Let's do it." I
yep,
said, "Let's do it." And it was funny, Henry. I was, my wife and I went down to Tasmania during COVID, um, for 5 days. Drove down, caught the ship across, and we're having breakfast in Battery Point. I said, "That looks like Kate over there, my patient." And so we're looking for photos of Kate in our thing. So I went up to her. I said, you look very much like this
Yeah.
patient of mine. She goes, oh, David, what are you doing down here? So again, that's like I'd been out of my practice 7, 8
Oh,
years. So again, it's that relationship thing. In fact, funny again, talking about relationships. Driving up to Sydney on Saturday night, up because I live down
yep,
in the Southern Highlands. We're driving up, and all of a sudden a patient rings on my phone. So I start talking to her. She said, "I'm sorry." She said, "I was trying to get over, and I didn't know whether to get over or not." I said, "You're driving that black Audi?" She said, "Yeah, yeah." She said, "I looked up as you went past. I said, that's Jane." And then I saw your number plate. I said, "Oh, that's David." So I thought I'd give you a ring. An hour later, we finally parked, and like she was going to Carlingford, and I was going to Penrith, and it was like we chatted all that way just on the phone, the
wow,
three of us, and she'd been coming back from down the snow. So again, we talked about
yep,
relationships, and that was a long term patient of mine. She still goes to the practice that I
yep,
sold, and but the relationship is still there. And so again, it's about being
yep,
friendly with people and building that relationship. So really, really important when somebody rings a dental practice, no matter who it is, the person who answers the phone needs to make it sound to the caller that nothing else is
yep,
going on. So they don't want to be typing stuff, sound like they're distracted, sound like they're annoyed, nothing. It has to be as if they've been waiting for that call all day, and they have to be friendly, right? Because everybody loves to talk to a
yeah,
friend
yep,
and we don't know who's going to answer the phone. And the second thing we have to do is we have to
yep,
solve their problem. So what are they calling about? That's not their problem. That's what they think their problem is. Their problem is their loose dentures, their crooked teeth, their grey teeth, their smelly breath, and then we have to
yeah,
give them hope. And the best hope we have is, look, why don't we do this? Why don't you just come in? We'll have a chat with the doctor. He'll have a look and see what you need to do. He'll tell you all the options that you can have, and then we can take it from
yep.
there. How does that sound?
It,
Okay. People, what are people going to say? He's just going to have a look. I'll do that. You sound like a nice person. They get off the phone. What do we want that caller to feel? We want that caller to feel that lady was so nice. I'm so looking forward to meeting her in person when I go down there. Sounds like it's a really good place to work. She sounds so
yep,
happy. It's not even about
yep.
the dentist. It's like the
It's
Wizard of Oz. By the time Dorothy met the Wizard of Oz, she knew that he was the only person who was going to get her to go back to Kansas. The only way she was going to get to Kansas was to meet him. But all the trouble she went to along the way, she was focused. She had to get there. And so the sale is made by the
yep.
people along the way and not really the
So-
dentist and all his degrees. No dentist, no one ever walks in to the dentist and the dentist goes, "You are so lucky to see me. I'm the best
yeah,
in town." Like that's they're out the door, but they will. Yeah, I told the story. I think I was telling you I got to go up to Sydney for a house sit. I get my hair cut every 4 weeks, and guess what? Right in the middle of this 4 week trip to Sydney to house sit, I'm due for my haircut. I can't do it earlier. I can't do it after. It's like often I can just 3 and 5. No, it's. So I rang my previous hairdresser. I actually rang where he works only 2 days a week. He owns a salon in Carlingford, and I just booked in. And then I sent him a message. I said I'm booked in to see you. He said, "Oh, that'll be good." The first time I met him, I was referred to him by one of my patients who was a hairdresser, and she said, "David, my family who don't come and see me in Leichhardt go and see this guy in Parramatta." So I walk in to see this guy first time, and it's a long weekend coming up. It's Thursday night, and he said, "What are you doing on the long weekend?" I said, "Well, actually tomorrow I'm going flying up to Queensland to the Sunshine Coast." He said, "What are you going to do up there?" So he said, "Are you going to play golf?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "I play golf."
yeah,
We're done. That's us.
yeah, yeah,
Friends forever. Like really
yeah,
good friends forever as a result of that. He cut my hair for like 10 years, 3 salons. And then only when I moved out of Sydney, it was
yeah.
just like too far to go up there. So it's about relationships, Henrik. It's all about relationships. And once you have that relationship, people will
And
accept your
also,
treatment.
it sounds like
And
what you kind of said so far is that you just got to make sure you create this caring factor. You just got to care about what it is. You got to show the other person on the other line that you care. That's what creates relationship, isn't it?
it is. And people won't, like a lot of dentists worry about, am I
Yep.
charging too much? But there are people out there who will pay the right price if they feel they're getting
Yes.
exceptional value. And part of that value
Yep.
is service. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. not that we think anything's going to go wrong with our dentistry, but if there is an issue, let's get them straight in, and if, but also if we serve them along the way, if we're seen to be not parking them in the waiting room, just have a seat, won't be too long. Like, don't,
Yeah.
yeah, just take a seat, won't be too long. That's a really really
Yeah.
bad thing to say. It's like, make yourself comfortable. I'll be with you in just a moment. Welcome to our practice. Thank you for coming in today. I spoke to you on
Yeah.
the phone. All this stuff. It's just how we greet
Yeah.
people.
And I'm sure, like when you have now patients coming in now, you develop this friendship. When when you speak to them, or when you consult them on a particular high value services, there's always going to be a question about price. Now, when a price question comes up with your patient, how do you kind of manage those kind of objections or questions?
Well, the thing is, Henry, if somebody asks the price, they're
Yeah.
actually wanting to buy. All right. Because if they don't want to buy, they just say, look, I can't afford this. They would just point blank, I can't afford this. I'm out of here. This is way more than I expected. But if they say, well, what's the price? And you can, that's a buying signal that they're sending. They want to know
Yeah.
how they can afford, how they can
Yeah.
fit it into their budget. So, but most dentists, when they hear that price question, they start objecting. The other thing, they start handling it as an objection. But the other thing that dentists tend to do is they dive straight
Yeah.
into a payment plan, and that's not really smart either. You might have a $20,000 case. They might only have been expecting to pay
Mm.
15, so they've got the
Yeah.
15. We just only need to finance the
Yeah.
5. But most dentists say, "Well, we'll finance the
Mm.
whole lot." Well, all of a sudden they got a 20, they got 20,000, they got 15 to go and spend on something else, and that's not right. We should minimize how much they have to
Yeah.
borrow. That's our
Yeah. That's right.
responsibility to them. But always, we had a patient once who, crown was going to be 2,300. She goes, "Oh, I don't think I can afford that," and and my wife, who worked on reception, said, "Well, how much do you think you can afford?" She said, "Well, I can afford 2,000." And so then all of a sudden they were only talking about 300.
Ah.
10 minutes later, she said, "You know what? I can just put that 300 onto another credit card."
Ah. Yep.
So but most people would dive in. Oh well, let's finance the whole 2,300. Let's get it in. We can do it for
Yep.
like $75 a month for 5 years. Eh, we, so let's just be
Yeah.
aware as to not to dive straight to their poor. We had one patient. We start. We used to tell our patients, we used to say, now I just need to go over the fees for next time with you at the end of as they're leaving. Just need to go over the fees. And this lady went, it's okay. She said, I know roughly what they are. It's all right. You don't have to go over them. And so we had to change what we said. And what we changed to was, um, do you need me to go over
Oh,
the fees
nice.
for next time? And give them the option to say, no, I've had a crown before. I had a crown last year. It's about the same,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. Okay, fine. So don't assume that everybody is on
Yeah.
the poverty line.
And especially when you
In
create
fact,
that trust and friendship. Now, especially
oh
when they
yes.
say that, you know they really
Mm,
trust you then. That's excellent. Now, how
mm.
should the receptionist kind of handle that? Do you typically say tell the receptionist they're asking over the phone about saying, "Oh, how much would implants cost at your surgery?" How would you recommend it? Yeah.
There's there's no there should be
Yep.
no deception. There should be no sticker
Yep.
shock. So the question on price shouldn't be answered if that's the
Yep.
first question, because we need to find out the
Yep.
reason why and what their urgency is for treatment and and work on that so that when they come in, we can then explain. But before we get off the phone, we should be able to give them range,
Mm-hmm.
a price range, so that they know
Mm-hmm.
roughly. All right. But we don't want to be like a builder, all right, and say it's cost plus. All right. What the heck does that mean? That just means I'll charge you
Yeah.
whatever I want, and then I'll add 10% or 25%. No, it's not like that at all. So we need to give them a
Yep.
ballpark figure. All right. And so, you know, crowns start at, veneers start at
Yep.
2,300 each, and depending on whether you need 6 or
Yep.
8 or 10, you know, we've all started with 6. Six makes them look like a horse because they've got six, and then you can see the dark teeth. I did that with my first patient. Six upper, six lower. She was back in a week. She said, David, we've got a problem. I said, what is it? She says, I've got grey teeth on the side. You're going to have to do two more here, two more there, two more there, two more there.
Yeah.
She just said, that's the answer. I just
Yeah.
need 10. So, in fact, most dentists now, they never do six. They do four or they do 10.
And how do you like train your reception staff? How would you recommend training them?
Oh, well, really good question, Henry, because that's what my
Yeah.
wife does really well. And so my wife was when we met, she was studying as a
Oh.
school teacher. So she became a school teacher, and then her next career was a mother. She left school teaching to have children, and then she was a stay-at-home mother. And then when it was time for, when the kids were okay at school by themselves, she started doing some
Yeah.
P&C work, some parents and citizens work at the school. And I said, you're wasted there. I said, I need somebody to come at my practice and just be a concierge. I said, you've got really good people skills. I want you to just entertain people when they arrive, and just because dentistry, you walk in and you get dumped in a waiting room with bad magazines, a noisy TV that might be just advertising ugly pictures of dentistry. And then you're just listening and watching and wondering why they're running late. Well, and you go down into a mine. And sometimes that patient never gets out of that mind. They get so nervous and so worked up. They hear something or they see something. They go, "Oh, I'm not. I just want to get this over. I'm getting out of here." And so we need to distract them with kindness. And so I asked my wife to come in and do that. And she used to come in after she dropped the kids at school. So she turned up about 9:30. And I said, one day as she turned up, and I said, got a bit of a problem. And she said, what is it? I said, both receptionists are sick, so you're going to have to answer the phone. She goes, well, how hard can that be? Well, at the end of the day, she goes, gee, that was hard. She said, I got to juggle
Yes.
incoming call, checking somebody out, greeting somebody. She said, this is really hard. We need processes. So her school teacher background allowed her to become an educator of a process that she then worked out how it had to be done. So she started doing hotel meetings, put a meeting on, and here's a venue, people come and watch. If they come on a Friday, they'd say, this is really good. By Monday, they'd forgotten it all. All right. So then she started going to practices and teaching them. They was rev them up at the practice. They still forgot it. 2 days later, they're back doing what they used to do. So then she made an online masterclass for them to actually access it as they would. Half the people don't even, the dentist buys it. Nobody even uses it. Half of them. So what's the answer? How do you get a name as being a really good educator? If Henry, if you play golf or you play the piano, all right. So you go to if you need a lesson in golf, do you go and buy Tiger Woods' book and try and work it out for yourself? Or do you think you go to the range and find a coach and get him to watch your swing and hear how the ball's sounding as it comes off the club, see how the flight? Now, if you went to a golf coach and he say, look, I'm just going to tell you how to hit the ball. I don't need to watch you because I know you're probably bad, but I'm just going to tell you, and you go back and work it out for yourself. Same with piano. You take your kids for piano lessons. They've got to hear how you're playing the piano. My dad had art lessons. My dad, when he retired, he had art lessons. His art teacher said, you drew this you're sitting down. He said, how do you know? He said, because I can tell by the way the lead on that pencil has been pushed in the wrong direction. You need to be standing when you draw to get the right textures in this. That's what we do when we listen to the phone calls. So my wife listens to phone calls. She listens to calls in practices. Here's what's being asked. Here's how people answer. And then she coaches them on, well, this one went wrong because, this one went right because. And it's a recipe. If you go on MasterChef, you have a recipe. You can't just say, I'm going to start with step 7, then I'm going to go to 2, then I'm going to go to 9, then I'm going to go. You've got to have them in order. You can't put the icing on the cake, then put it in the oven. That's not going to work. You've got no cake. It'll be a sludge. So that's what happens. When we listen to the calls, they get things out of order. They get down to making an appointment, and then they go, oh, what was your name? They've been talking to them for 5 minutes, and they haven't even got their name. If I met you at a barbecue or at a bar, I'd say, hey, my name's David. What's yours? Oh, Henry. Nice to meet you. All right. But what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't get to 10 minutes into the conversation and go, surname, first name, date of birth. And that's what they do on the phone sometimes too. They become all of a sudden they've gone from being really personable to being robotic. You're right, they're robotic. And
Another
it's like
number.
data click. So That's
Yep.
that's a computer age that does that.
That's really interesting you mentioned that. Now, we've got clients actually send inquiries through our websites or through our landing pages, and sometimes they don't pick up. And now it's the job of it's the treatment coordinator or the receptionist or whoever it is to call these people up again. How do you, during that initial call, how do you recommend to, get that connection there?
Well, let's just backtrack one moment there, Henry. And this is a global statistic that in dental practice, well,
Yep.
in North America, I don't know about the UK, but in North America and in Australia, it's about the same. Only 3 out of 5
Yes.
calls get answered.
Yep.
2 just go through to a voicemail. And guess what? Most of the time, those people don't leave a message. They just ring the
Yep.
next dentist, or they go and do something else. And so, but we do have caller ID, so we should be training our staff to be able to
Yes.
take 2 calls.
Hold
We
on.
should be training our staff that if they're dealing with someone, do you mind if I just get that because it's ringing,
Yep.
all right? And just say, look, I'm sorry, I'm just with a patient at the moment. Would it be okay for me to call you back in 15 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever? Whatever you tell them, make it shorter when you call them back. So don't tell them 10 and it's 20, but tell them 20 and it's
Yeah.
15. Tell them 15 and
Yep.
it's 10. All right. So you're promising, but then
Yep.
you're over delivering because you're getting there quicker. So that's the first skill they need. Then the next skill they need to be able to do is if they is they've got to convert. So if we can get them answering more calls, they're still going to convert at the same ratio. If we're getting them to call straight back, they should never be doing that. So they should be calling straight back, but if they should be
Yes.
answering and just getting because somebody will be good. Oh, I'm glad she sounded good. I'm glad. I'll go and make a cup of tea. I'll go and check my emails. I'll go and put some washing on. I'll go and chop some wood. Anything, him, anybody. Um, it, they'll do something if you give them a time frame. But if it's a hope, wonder why that person. I rang a real estate agent on Friday. They haven't rung me back.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday.
Yeah.
They had a
Yeah.
building for sale. I said I want to know the story about this building. Eh. So anyway, so then when they call them back, they need to be able to engage them, as we were talking before. So they need to be able to, um, even if it's a, even if it's a, even if it's an online booking, you need to call them and just say, look, I just see you made a booking to see Dr. Jones. I just wanted to make sure that we've got you in for the right amount of time. So can you just explain to me briefly what you're looking to have Dr. Jones talk
Yeah.
to you about? All right. And just remember the person calling up has all of a sudden done something different because the person who's made the appointment thinks, I'll just turn up and Dr. Jones will see me when I see it. So all of a sudden we're calling it. Better still, between now and when Dr. Jones' appointment is, what if Dr. Jones rings and says, hey, it's Dr. Jones here. I see that you've got an appointment to see me in a couple of days' time. Just thought I'd ring and say, welcome. I'm
Wow.
looking forward to
Yeah.
meeting you. And just, is there anything that I can do, um, be ready for when you come in, just so that we can
Yeah.
maximize our time
Yeah. Yeah.
together? All right. And do that during
Yeah.
work hours because they take the phone call at work and they go, you wouldn't believe I've got a dental appointment in 2 days' time. That was the dentist ringing up to just see
Yeah.
if they could help
Yep.
me with anything. And they go, geez, my dentist never
Yep.
does that. And I said, what was the name of that guy? I'm going to
Yeah.
change dentists. Oh, I don't have a dentist. I'm going to go to that guy. So again, it's
Yep.
pre-selling yourself,
And
and
comes back to that care factor, and care factor develops relationships that then develops trust. By the sounds of it. Yeah.
yeah. So some dentists will say, "Oh, I've got a degree. I've got to be
Yeah.
aloof," but you can't be aloof. There's only one soup Nazi, and every other person selling
Yeah.
soup is kind. You know, and the soup Nazi may have a style, but it's not a nice
Yeah.
place you know to have to line up. And I think you've got to be a really nice person. If you're a nice person, um, people will come
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. Really good point. And it's interesting you mentioned that, the course should be connected within that, straight away without having them to leave that message. And it's interesting you made that point because what we find is that in our marketing system, on our CRM, and one of the capabilities is that when someone leaves a say inquiry or contact us on our page, will then actually would force a phone call to either one of the receptionist team or then to the next person, and then that allows them to actually do a direct call connect to this patient inquiry within 5 minutes. And we find that when they actually talk to each other or use that system, the connection rate increases to about 90% versus if there was missed. So it's actually amazing what the connection rate can do if you just call within 5 minutes.
That's really, really important. And, part of my job, Henry, is I call dental
Yeah,
practices to hear how they answer the phones myself and also to speak to the
yeah,
dentist. And so I often, if I get a message, I don't leave a callback message. I wait to see if they call me as if I'm a new
yeah.
patient inquiry. And
Good.
so that's really interesting. The other thing about the calls, so we said that 2 out of 5 don't get answered. Of the 3 that get answered, only one ends up actually making an appointment that
Right.
they keep. So really, for every 5 phone calls to the practice, only
Yep.
1 in 5 actually ends up being a seat in the chair. And so if we can change that
Yep.
conversion rate to of those 3, if we can up it that um, they go from 1 in 3 to
Mm.
2 out of 3, we've doubled their new patients and it hasn't
Yep.
cost them anything because it's an internal conversion. And so people like you, and you know this, they say, "Oh, this your marketing's not working," and you go, "Well, here's the calls, here's the ones you missed, and here's your
Yeah.
conversion rate on here's the
Yeah.
ones you've answered, and you still aren't because they're not incentivizing the staff to make sure that's an inquiry. What's that mean? That means that that person is ringing from an advertisement that we've run, and they're actually ringing for a high value case, and we should be getting them in to talk to them. And if we're good at what we do, then we should be converting some of those people to get the treatment that they're
And
inquiring
you
about.
also mentioned not just higher value case, even if it's the general dentistry, each patient is worth how much? You keep telling me before?
Yeah, well, in my practice, every patient was worth, on average, a new patient was worth $2,430. Depending on whether they had Invisalign or whether they had veneers or whether they just had an extraction. On average, 10 new patients a week. I said
Yep.
that's money in the bank, and because you need
Yep.
money, because some patients finish their treatment and they just become regular cleans. Some patients die and some patients move away. You can't stop that. A statistic I heard many years ago was that in a 2-year period, the population of North Sydney turns over
Right.
50%. So 50% of the people living in the North
Yep.
Sydney council area
Yeah,
are
wow.
gone.
Yep.
They're renters,
Yep.
they're gone. So that's 50% of the population. That means 50%
Yep.
more new patients all the time. So you've got to be able to service those people. Some people will travel back. Some
Mm.
people will never
Yeah.
travel. Some people won't travel a
Yeah,
block
that's true.
sometimes.
Yeah. Right. Well,
So
thank you. Now, in summary, what would you say, for dental practice to get more high value patients? Like, what would you one tip would you tell them?
Well, there's 2 things, and they go hand in hand, Henry, because as we mentioned, you can spend, as a dentist, you can spend a lot of money on marketing, but if your phones aren't answered correctly,
Yep.
you're still going to end up with the same result, except you're going to have spent
Yep.
the money on the
Yep.
marketing. It's like I said, if you owned a cricket team, if you owned a big bash cricket team, no point buying a new fast bowler if your
Yep.
wicketkeeper can't catch the ball. Like
Yeah.
four
Yep.
four buys, drop catches, you've got to people have got to be able to catch. So your receptionist has to know
Yep.
how to catch those inquiries and get them into your book, and they've got to stay there. But your dentist also knows how to
Yep.
keep them as well. You can't be, it's a multifaceted approach. So when you start marketing, you should be making sure that everybody has the skill to, everybody who can answer the phone should be the same. We all know when we go to the theatre to see Phantom of the Opera and they say, Anthony Warlow's not the Phantom tonight. You go, oh no,
Mhm.
I've paid full price and now I'm getting an
Yep.
understudy. Well, it's the same when they ring your practice and the Steri girl answers the phone. She's the understudy. She's not trained. Oh, we don't train her. She's not meant to be answering the phone, but she does. And somebody's ringing up for like 20 veneers and they go,
Yeah.
oh, and they go, oh, it was a shopper. It was a shopper. It
Great.
wasn't a shopper. It was like 20 veneers.
Yep.
Poof, gone.
And what services do you guys provide then? Yeah.
Oh,
How can
so
you help them?
thank you
Yeah.
for asking. Yeah, so as I said, my practice was in Western
Yep.
Sydney, Parramatta. And the good part about Parramatta was that it was Sydney's second CBD. So people, you didn't bring your children to Parramatta because it was like child abuse, because it was, you know, there was no fun for children. You drive past suburban practices. So I just saw adults. But what it meant there was it was still wasn't Rose Bay, but we were able to build a very successful practice for people who didn't want to have to go
Mm.
to Double
Yep.
Bay, Rose Bay, and the city. And so we were able to offer those services and offer customer service. And we charged more than our
Yep.
competitors. We didn't know what our neighbours were charging. We just charged what we thought was a value, and people would come and they'd pay it because they were
Yeah.
receiving that care, that friendship. And you talked about referring patients. One of my best referring patients had a full clearance and wouldn't even sit in the dental chair for the impression. She sat on my stool and I had to stand up. But she referred her boss, who had every tooth in her head crowned. And she was,
Uh,
I never saw her again, but every Christmas and every birthday I'd send her a card,
Very nice touch.
and
Yep.
she loved that. So again, it's about
Yep.
keeping in touch with people. So it's the people skills and remembering that it's not just who they are and what they're going to do; it's who they
Yep. Okay.
might know
Excellent.
as well.
And now if we've got any, our clients interested in working with you, David, how can they get in contact with you, and what kind of things can you provide, support, or can you provide them?
Yeah, so depending on
Yep.
what they need, again, it's
Yep.
like being a dentist. I'll look at what they're doing, I'll see where their issues are, and then I'll provide them with a
Yep.
treatment plan as to what will get them the best result. And ultimately, it's like what we were talking about. Somebody rings up for implants, they don't really want
Yeah.
bolts in their jaw. What they want is their teeth to look good and not move up and down. So that when and I had a patient like that, we made him some implants because his denture was going like this. You talk to him and you'd be going like this, watching his teeth go up and down. And the whole family said, "Oh, I'm so glad you did Frank's teeth because we were all sick and tired of sitting at Christmas dinner going like this at him." And so it's about finding out what they need and then working on a program with them. But every dental practice still has people ringing up to find out more because it is a tough buy. It's not just like ringing up and saying how much do you charge for 4 Pirellis or 4 Michelins or 4 Goodyears. They're stock standard, and people don't like buying tires
No.
either. They like to get the most out of their tires. But dentistry, nobody likes to do it. So if you've got somebody nice answering the phone, they go, "Oh, that lady sounded really nice." So we train the front
Yep.
office, but we also train the dentist and the
Great.
back office on customer
Okay.
service skills as well. And and at our practice, people would come. They'd be there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes before they came in. They'd be in their having their treatment. They'd be there for 20, 30 minutes afterwards,
Great.
just chatting. It was really a conversation place. Because it kind of wasn't like, because it wasn't like Cheers, and it wasn't really like Central Perk in Friends, but it was kind of that sort of environment, a place where people
Great.
chatted.
Great. Okay. Cool. Um,
So
yep.
they can find me. Just look me up. I'm on Facebook. I'm on
Yep.
LinkedIn.
And what's your
Um,
website again? Just great.
theultimatepatientexperience.com.
All right. I will provide also the contact details either in an email or on the landing pages or in the footer or whatever as well. All right.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Henry. I
No worries.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thanks a
having
lot,
me.
David. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry.